This is Sybert signing into the 2021 Kane's Wrath Championship Series Semifinal A. We are kicking it here on Tournament Odyssey for game number 1 in the north as the Green Nod blasting through the quarterfinals here to the semifinals. This is Drive! And in the south as the Red, also Nod. That's right, we're kicking it with a mirror matchup, blasting through the quarterfinals as well. This is BikeRushOwnz! BikeRushOwnz and Drive, two guys who provide some of the best games in Kane's Wrath over the last year for sure. Excited to see these guys play out a best of 7 here in the quarterfinals of the championship series. Now, of course, this is sponsored by David, produced by BikeRushOwnz. So we've got a pretty flat prize pool distribution. That's something we've talked about before. So there isn't a huge jump up. Of course, making it into the top 4 guarantees you $75. Third place takes $100, and then if you get into the finals, you're guaranteed $200 with a shot of the grand prize of $300. Very flat prize pool distribution, especially for a community-run tournament where it tends to be people want to see first place have a big old prize pool, and so they're like, all right, we got $800, $799 is going to first place. So a little bit of a different tournament, and it's nice to have some stuff that's really top-heavy and nice to have some stuff that is more flat in the prize pool distribution. Bike Rush coming in here with a couple of bikes. Got a buggy as well, just to put a bit more pressure on these harvesters. Most likely won't get a kill. Drive is pretty good at controlling his harvesters, but also right now, Bike is actually just going for the buggies. He's trying to cut down the actual War Factory production. Look at that, cycling away the bikes to try and just maximize damage. This is not necessarily about killing harvesters and ending the game right here, right now. It's also about curbing the tide of Drive and just winning the war of attrition literally from moment 1. So good splits by Bike Rush on most of these attacks coming in here until that last one where he a little bit overkilled, but in an understandable way. But that was good rotation and good splitting for the most part by BikeRushOwnz. Now the MCV is over here, but the second War Factory is back at home. I mean, he has dropped a power plant over here, so I assume this is not going to be an MCV cell. Otherwise, you really should drop the power plant back over here. But this is going to be a delayed refinery. He's looking to put on some pressure, and Drive really wants to get a word of that. He wants to hear about it before it is too late. He himself is dropping down his first refinery, so he is going for that delayed production, going more for the eco route. Let's see how he's able to hold up. Most likely a barracks on the way for defense, although he may be dropping an additional power plant before that barracks. But wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of rocket squads come on out either at the main base or here at the natural expansion to help defend against the pressure coming in from BikeRushOwnz. Shredder turret also going to be going down, I guess just to add some slight bit of DPS. Nice body blocking there by Drive. Unfortunately, Bike Rush has too many forces around the natural expansion of Drive. The first harvester goes down. A Hand of Nod went down, but actually no rocket squads were produced. It's into Scorpion tanks for Drive as he struggles to deal with the pressure that Bike Rush is putting out. There's an additional power plant and a delayed refinery at the natural expansion for BikeRushOwnz. BikeRushOwnz also going to be jumping on a buggy. Maybe a bit of a mistake there. He thought he could get the kill, and I thought he was going to get the kill as well. Instead, he lost a buggy himself, and forcing more and more laser turrets to be drafted. I wonder if that Shredder turret was actually a bit of a misclick, and he intended to build an additional laser turret up there, and just in the heat of the moment made a bit of a mistake. Natural expansion is powered down for the current moment. Drive is transitioned into a couple of Scorpion tanks, and I assume he's just going to try and get his economy back online. Losing that one harvester is super annoying, but Drive has himself 5 and 2 back home, so he's going to be okay in the economy front. He certainly had to spend way more cash on that defense than he ever intended to. That was a fairly costly defense for Drive, but he survived, and he only lost one harvester. BikeRushOwnz delaying his natural expansion, but actually getting to a saturation point faster than Drive. So his pressure, if nothing else, it has disrupted Drive to the point of BikeRushOwnz maybe even being a bit ahead on the economy front. Both players grabbing up their tib spikes earlier in this game, and BikeRushOwnz may decide to take a couple of shots at the tib spikes of Drive. Op Center coming down for BikeRushOwnz. No Dozer Blades queued up just yet, so he could just instead be going up to Avatars, not necessarily wanting to stick on Scorpion Tank spam for much of this game. We'll have to see. Dozer Blades coming right out for Drive, so it actually could be a Scorpion Tank Laser Capacitor army coming out from Drive, and then maybe something higher tech for BikeRushOwnz. Some players do just go for a decent number of Scorpions to transition into the late game, rather than Scorpions being their late game solution. Other players like to just pump Scorpion tanks until Kingdom Come. And no matter what happens, they are going to get themselves a big tank army and do nothing else with it. BikeRushOwnz pinging the map. I'm not exactly sure why. Perhaps he saw something. Tier 3 coming up for both players at almost the exact same time. Again, BikeRush just leading a little bit. He pings the refinery. Maybe he's saying they're too close together. Oh, he may actually be saying, "You've made a mistake, son." Tib Catalyst Missile might be on the way. The Tib Chemical Plant coming up, quite possibly. There it is. And BikeRushOwnz says, "Look, I'm going to nuke you." He gets them both. BikeRushOwnz calling the shot and landing it perfectly. And that is a mistake that is difficult to come back from. That's an interesting move. Maybe Drive thought he was going to die, but surely killing one of these refineries here on the front line, the natural expansion. There we go. Okay. I guess he just forced the sell-off? Yeah, okay, there we go. I guess Drive just forced the sell-off of that refinery at the main base, which makes a lot more sense. I thought he catalyst missiled that refinery. I was like, wow, Drive, you're really slipping. But no, it is not what it was. Refinery is back up. Of course, a delay and a bit of a mistake there by Drive, putting those refineries that close together. BikeRushOwnz being gifted that, and I guess that's part of the disruption that happens when your opponent is going for that. Dozer Blades finished up for both players, and laser capacitors as well. So it was indeed a full tank army that BikeRush was going for. He just delayed his Dozer Blades in comparison to Drive. A lot of laser capacitors, not a lot of answers coming out from Drive, and BikeRushOwnz choosing to not go for critical infrastructure damage right away. He's driving past most of it, circling around to the north side, and now he's going to be blasting down that refinery, continuing to cut off the economy of Drive, but now the MCV is going to go down, and Drive is simply being outclassed in this match. He has no option as far as how to respond to this. Even a Black Hand Squad getting in and burning down that Hand of Nod. So many Scorpion tanks showing up for BikeRushOwnz, and game number 1 was pretty strongly in his control. Drive ordinarily much more of a match, but he just got a little bit behind early on, and it pretty much snowballed from there. Drive has been defeated. The GG gets called. And BikeRushOwnz is one of those players that can take an inch and turn it into a mile. Now, of course, Drive is still a great Kane's Wrath player, and we expect to see him bring it back, possibly starting in game number 2, which takes us to Six City, USA for game number 2. This has been one of those maps that didn't, I don't know when it was actually made, but it didn't show up for a long time. And then in the last year or so, it has been played quite a bit, and it almost always is good games. In the north, as the green, as the GDI, this is Drive! And in the south, as the red, this time as the Scrin, this is BikeRushOwnz. Now, those of you who do more than view tournament games, you may remember Drive and BikeRushOwnz played a match, just a random game on this map not too long ago. Was very different. That was a Traveler 59 versus a Steel Talons game. So Drive was playing Steel Talons, but he was in the southern position, and BikeRushOwnz was playing Traveler 59. So, I mean, it is the same sort of matchup, but Steel Talons and Traveler 59 definitely have different strengths and weaknesses than Scrin and GDI. Love this move. A lot of Scrin players have been doing this on 6 City. They send out their descents. They try and go for those bridge kills. You get the bridges on your opponent's side of the map, and it just cuts them off from that blue Tiberium. Makes it a little bit easier for you to get the blue Tiberium, either as your natural expansion if you're going up from Bike Rush's perspective, or over here, and it cuts off that attack path from your opponent being able to utilize it. Fast move out to the natural expansion for BikeRushOwnz, and Drive is going to be spotting that. Both players getting up that natural expansion. No aggro for either one of them just yet. And the double tib spike capture by both players as well. So everything is looking pretty standard. All right, anytime you see an APC, lots of times APCs are nothing out of the ordinary, and they're just something that you get because they're good in your army. But you also always got to be careful with a guy like Drive. He might do more than just produce rocket squads from this barracks to stick inside of APCs. Rocket APCs can be a great combo against Scrin. We'll have to see what the build order continues to be for Drive. Some players against Scrin do want to get out that AP ammo a bit more quickly, but Drive isn't necessarily that guy. We'll have to see if he plays it out a little bit differently. He does deploy his MCV maybe a bit early. Okay, nothing inside of that APC, so if it goes down, there isn't additional value lost. A couple of descents coming over here to the left side of the map. They're going to maybe try and get a drop on the refinery. Drive is aware of this, hopefully, as this MCV packs up and heads a little bit to the right. He needs to redeploy it now before the descents get up close and personal. This is potentially going to be really bad as the MCV is taking so much damage, and Drive is dying right here in front of our eyes in game number 2, moments into the match, and he is fire sailing the MCV, signaling the end of all things for Drive. That will do it for game number 2. BikeRushOwnz getting lucky in game number 2. Drive not paying attention because he was focused on other things. And yikes, that is one that starts to tilt you. Yeah, this is one of those cases where it's like any individual game can be a terrible representation of how a player or a match normally goes, and in this case, that makes Drive look like a bad player, which of course he's not, but that was just, boy, BikeRushOwnz got lucky. Drive was not paying attention, and that is the end of game number 2. So BikeRushOwnz feeling very good about 2 games up in a best of 7, but Drive needs to start bringing it back in game number 3, which takes us to the map, Slippery Slope. Hopefully that is not a bad omen for the player in the south. But right now in the north, as the red nod, this is BikeRushOwnz. And in the south, as the green, also nod. Once again, we're back to a mirror matchup. This is Drive. Slippery Slope. I think I've seen this map once before in like a competitive sense. 2 tib spikes near your base. I think there's also a 4-player community-made map that looks similar to this. They sort of took this idea and made it a 4-player one. I might be thinking of Tournament Shaft, which I think is a default map. Anyways, this map is kind of interesting because it's a community-made map, but the geography is a bit different. It's a bit like a official map. This split between your main base and then the 2 kind of contested natural expansions is interesting. Do you go for the one that's a little bit shorter distance and go that way, or do you try and just split the map north v south? You have an EMP control center in the middle of the map, and then of course those 2 tib spikes near your base, which are pretty easy to secure. Also a snow map. You know, I personally like the snow. I live in a climate that doesn't have a lot of snow, and I think people who live in climates that get a lot of snow tend to hate the snow. But either way, I always like seeing snow, and it's about 1 billion degrees outside right now, so being on a snow map is certainly nice. There's the classic pack up your MCV for just a moment and then unpack it for a moment tactic coming out there from BikeRushOwnz. I assume he dropped an additional power plant or something there. 4 harvesters up and running for BikeRushOwnz, but he's continuing to power into bikes after that. I assume the same thing. No, it's actually going to be 3 harvesters up and running for Drive. So deciding to go and get more bikes, but is he actually going to be able to cross the map and do anything with those additional bikes? Should be a harvester on the follow-up for Drive after that. They both went with the short route. Now, this is one of those maps that, because of the geography, the way the tib fields have kind of this ridge, and then the way that you've got this 4-way, I guess, across in the middle of the map, sometimes you can get units caught in the wrong spot, not because of distance, not because, like, you're way out of place, but because of the geography. It takes you so much longer to get from one area to another on this map than it does some of the more flat and open maps where, you know, it's just about your space and you can cross the map quite quickly. But natural expansions look like they're going to be coming up for both players. Love to see that refinery out of BikeRushOwnz after game number 1, where he put on a little bit more pressure, and game number 2, where he sort of got lucky with those descents jumping on the MCV. It's nice to see a refinery first at the natural expansion from BikeRushOwnz. Rocket Squad's hunting around the map for BikeRush, and it looks like he maybe caught a buggy or a bike here and did a bit of a swooping in with some rockets. Laser turret already up and running at the natural expansion, and Drive is going to jump on the bikes of Bike. He's going to hope that this works out in his favor. He does whittle down the number of bikes to just 1. Of course, BikeRush producing more all the time, but getting the jump on that army like that, winning the war of attrition, is always a good feeling, especially when you're down 0-2 in a tournament series. BikeRushOwnz, that is a curious refinery placement. So when you don't want to move your MCV and your build radius means that you can only place the refinery within killing distance of a TIB catalyst missile, I guess that is the solution. The early MCV deploy to get out your natural expansion refinery as soon as possible means that the build radius is not optimized for those refinery placements, especially as these guys tech up to Tier 3, get those 1 clicks, and progress to the late game. So, BikeRushOwnz choosing, I mean, this could have been just a mistake. He could have accidentally placed it there, but I think he placed it there because of the TIB catalyst missile radius. He didn't want to go for the kill on that refinery, or the double kill on the refinery. But, of course, that means he's going to have an awkward drive back and forth to the Tiberium every day. It'll be like the olden days, when every drive to Tiberium or was an awkward drive. Bikes on the south side, but it's Scorpion tanks in the middle of the map from Drive. He's going to have to deal with laser turrets and rocket squads. Unfortunately, the Scorpion tanks didn't bring a lot of buggies around to cut down some of those rocket squads, and the bikes circling around to help out the laser turret are going to be able to eat up those Scorpion tanks no problem at all. Drive's army just evaporating there to the rocket squads and the laser capacitors as they go for the crush move, but it takes so long. Bike's now swarming in for Bike. He gets cleaned up, dealing sort of equal damage perhaps to Drive. But on the south side, a couple of rocket squads maybe getting some free shots off against harvesters. No, the harvesters are all running away. TIB catalyst missile coming in. There's the kill of 1 refinery, and now it would be nice if Bike came in with some bikes to finish off those weakened harvesters, but he's not quite there yet. Actually, only the harvesters took surprisingly little damage considering how close to that catalyst missile they actually were. Tier 3 is does Drive not have his Tier 3? Oh, huh. Okay, so BikeRushOwnz is actually significantly ahead in the tech tree. I thought he would be at Tier 3 so far. I'm not actually sure. I guess Drive just spent too much cash on the Scorpion tanks. There's the Tier 3. So it has been up and running for a moment. I just missed its location, and there is the TIB catalyst missile, or the TIB chemical plant, rather. And where is Drive going to be utilizing it? He's got 2 attack forces, one in the north, one in the south. The one in the north deciding to turn around in the face of those Venoms. In the south, Scorpion Tank's going to be heading in to the natural expansion of BikeRushOwnz, and he's going to be looking to also utilize that Catalyst Missile most likely. Crush is doing much better this time, but the first Obelisk is out already. There's the Catalyst Missile landing on that Harvester, doing big damage and killing off the refinery as well. Almost getting a free kill on that Harvester as it auto-docks to that refinery, but it's not quite meant to be. Good damage on the refinery, but it looks like it will survive, and also this Obelisk may save the Technology Center as well. A couple of rocket squads putting additional damage onto those Scorpion tanks. BikeRushOwnz trying to cut in with some Venoms, will be getting pushed away at the natural expansion of Drive, and the Scorpion tanks getting a little bit cut off from their friends are just going to get surrounded and destroyed perhaps. And Avatar, rocket squads, and laser turret all going to be making short work of those Scorpion tanks. And BikeRushOwnz now going to be pushing, it looks like, with a second MCV, going to be adding on those obelisks, many at a time. BikeRushOwnz putting direct pressure onto the natural expansion of Drive, and he's just got a handful of laser capacitor Scorpion tanks. He's going to have a hard time dealing with this Redeemer. What in the world is he going to do? I guess maybe if he has a bunch of EMP Raider buggies, but it doesn't look like he has anything. BikeRushOwnz putting on the gas and not taking it off at any time. Drive forced to retreat from his natural expansion, leaving maybe 15% of the Tiberium unharvested, and BikeRushOwnz may actually be able to capitalize on that. Drive may be going for a base race, just trying to cut across to the other side of the map and chase down BikeRush's natural expansion and then turn north and go for a kill on his original main base. We'll have to see. 2 avatars are stomping to the defense, and it looks like 1 obelisk is queued up. A second obelisk may also be queued up as BikeRushOwnz is prepared for a potential base race. Yeah, 3 obelisks on the front line plus avatars. It's going to take a lot of Scorpion tanks to melt down that front line. BikeRushOwnz crushes the natural expansion of Drive, and at the same time, Drive is going to have a really tough time breaking the natural expansion of Bike. Sell-off of a refinery and an air tower. This Venom taking some shots at those Scorpion tanks. And I'm not sure what the play is for Drive to try and get back into this game. He's got 5 harvesters long-distance mining this green Tiberium. He's about to be caught in between a rock and a hard place as obelisks hemming him in while a Redeemer is going for the crush. And we'll get the crush on it. Looks like, what? No, that harvester escaping just barely with its life. Venom starting to poke away at these Scorpion tanks as Drive tries to find any opening that isn't just pure suicide for his Scorpion tanks. He's looking for that critical infrastructure damage, but at this point, it's going to be very difficult to pull off against BikeRushOwnz, who's well defended almost everywhere. He's got obelisks ready to go down almost anywhere. Scorpion tank's going to be targeting down the avatars. He jumps on one. That's a good kill, but he needs a little bit more of a victory than that. MCV going down, drops an additional refinery here next to the Tib Spike for the long-distance harvesting, and I guess just to give place the harvesters in an additional spot to refine their Tiberium. Additional obelisk does go down, and this harvester full of Tiberium, if he's lucky, will escape for Drive. The other guy giving his life in sacrifice. Obelisk is getting overwhelmed. The laser turret's also going down. But that's not the end of the road for Drive, who's managed to stabilize a little bit. Stabilize might be too generous of a word. But he's trying to pull something out of nothing in game number 3. BikeRushOwnz has pushed Drive into a corner, and I mean, he's had a tech advantage for a long time. He's got a turtling advantage, and he's got a Tib field advantage. He doesn't actually have any refineries here. He literally is just long-distance harvesting Drive's old field. And from this situation, it's almost impossible for Drive to find a good angle to engage. The Redeemer is going to stomp on forward. He's getting the crush on one Scorpion tank, and a second Scorpion does get crushed. Harvesters and Scorpions surrounding this Redeemer, and he's going to get the kill on the Redeemer. How many Scorpion tanks will he have to trade out for this as BikeRushOwnz closes in? The Redeemer goes down, and now he can move on. Actually going to be catching an Avatar in the middle of the map as well. That's great for Drive. The question, of course, is can he really push in and do any damage to BikeRushOwnz, or can he only shark around the map, the 1/4 of the map that he owns, and try and stop BikeRushOwnz from moving out? That was a great jump on that Redeemer, but if he tries to move into BikeRush's base, I don't know how he's going to make that happen against a double MCV Obelisk player. Although, does he still have a double MCV? It might only be one MCV. And if he doesn't have the cash to keep dropping obelisks, maybe Drive can win a war of attrition. I don't know if this is a good angle for an attack, but let's see what Drive is able to do with it. Scorpion tanks coming in here. Harvesters as well to absorb damage. You always got to hand it to Drive, being able to utilize Harvesters as much as possible, going for the crush on those infantry, and he's getting the surround on this Avatar, going for the kill of those high-tech mechs. Rocket Squad's putting out so much DPS on this army, but the lasers of Drive overwhelming the forces of BikeRushOwnz, and he's now getting a drop on the Scorpion tanks just spawning in for BikeRush. The Rocket Squad's doing what they can. They've finally broken the back of Drive. Drive's attack falling a little bit flat there after dealing with the Avatars, and no real obelisks coming down from BikeRushOwnz. He's actually pulled his MCV back to somewhere or sold it off. I'm not actually sure where his MCV went, so there were no defenses at all coming down for BikeRushOwnz. And BikeRushOwnz, maybe low on cash, did he paint himself into a corner? Drive still has a long way to go before he's able to take this game from BikeRushOwnz, but he's got a better chance than he had just a minute ago. Harvesters going in for the crush, just unit after unit getting run over by those Harvesters. A great choice by Drive to snipe that Avatar Husk, but also to utilize those Harvesters in that way. And now the Scorpion army has fallen, so it's up to Drive to try and pull something else out. Oh, did Drive also sell his MCV? So are they both in an MCV sell situation, but BikeRushOwnz just has way more infrastructure and 3 Tiberium fields under his control? The laser capacitors are a huge help, but BikeRushOwnz, I mean, literally, if he just has more Tiberium and more production. He actually doesn't have more production. They have the same rate of production, which is 1 war factory. Which is funny because, in theory, BikeRushOwnz should be able to slam out so many more units than Drive, but they have the same production. Defender's advantage is going to be key here, and BikeRushOwnz, with that laser capacitor disadvantage, is possibly going to be forced to be the one who's the aggressor. I guess at the same time, every moment that goes on, BikeRushOwnz gets further ahead. Eventually, BikeRushOwnz is going to just rebuild his MCV and kind of restart his production. Jumping on the tip spike is definitely nice. So let's see. BikeRushOwnz now bringing his own Harvesters onto the front line to absorb damage and also to go for the crush. He sees not a lot of Rocket Squads, though, and he's like, wait a second, do you not have any Rocket Squads in your army? MCV up and running for BikeRushOwnz. Yeah, I didn't realize he sold off both of his MCVs. He still has so many more Harvesters, so many more refineries than Drive. I guess they're both potentially long-distance harvesting. Oh, he gets 2 Hands of Nod so that he can spend his cash, and then he sells off his MCV again. If anything, if BikeRushOwnz loves anything, it's selling an MCV. This has been true for almost the entirety of his career. Harvesters going for the crush of those Rocket Squads, and this is how BikeRushOwnz is going to try and win out this match. You'd think he would have dropped like an additional refinery, so he had 1 on each field instead of 2 on the right side of the map and then none on the left side of the map. But now, with that barracks, BikeRushOwnz is feeling more confident in his army composition. It would have been fantastic if at the same moment Drive had gotten out his own MCV, and he also dropped a couple of Hands of Nod. It's not quite going to be, so let's see what the crushes are like. First Harvester going in, not necessarily getting a lot of crushes on the rocket squads, absorbing a lot of damage, though, before the Scorpion tanks are sort of in range. BikeRushOwnz starting to press in. Scorpions are good on both sides, good numbers on both sides. As Drive steps forward, he's having to contend with the rocket squads, and that's where his numbers disappear. Those laser capacitors are good, but they're not so good that they beat out rocket squads. As game number 3 goes to BikeRush, almost losing his grasp on that game as Drive cleaned up that Redeemer, and BikeRushOwnz did not have a really solid defense at Drive's natural expansion. But that's one where I'm actually surprised BikeRushOwnz wasn't further ahead. I guess just the cap, the amount of Tiberium on the map being so low, stopped BikeRushOwnz from getting crazy far ahead. In the end, only 17,000 credits. It felt like BikeRushOwnz had so much more under his control, but actually it was relatively close between them for much of that game. That will do it for game number 3. Let's see what happens in game number 4, which takes us to Tournament Crater, a map we haven't seen in a little while. Glad to be seeing it here in the semifinals. And this, in the north, as the red nod, is BikeRushOwnz. Feeling good being up 3-0 in the south, as the green also nod. This is Drive. There are a couple of funny things you can do on this map with engineers. So if you haven't seen this map, you do have the 2 tib spikes split pretty far apart from your main, but you also have this mutant hovel. And we've seen players, you also have EMP control centers, which is apparently what BikeRush is going for there in the near the middle of the map. But we've also seen players get out 4 engineers, rush to an airfield, and then airdrop their engineers to their opponent's tib spikes, and go for a 4 tib spike game that way. You also have a blue field in the corners of the map. This one kind of looks like a face there in the south. And then a natural expansion with a slow-growing green tib field, which is a pretty big size if it gets all the way out there, which I don't think it ever really does. And then, of course, the crater in the middle of the map with a even bigger crater in it, or an even deeper crater, rather, in the middle of that. Natural expansion, expand from the high ground. Looks like what these guys are doing. Drive, getting out his buggy to clean up that militant squad. Always nice to kill them off before you do whatever you're going to do with your natural expansion. In this case, it's nothing too wild yet, although this Hand of Nod is making me a little bit suspicious. BikeRushOwnz not actually producing anything with it at the current moment, which we'll keep an eye on that Hand of Nod. When the guy like BikeRush is around, you can't be too careful with something like an out-of-place Hand of Nod. What exactly is he planning to do with that? Now, of course, with this being a tournament game, we probably won't see anyone go for that militant, or that mutant hovel, go for any militant mutants, as it were. Something we can hope to see in a random match, but probably much less likely in a tournament match. And if we do see that, then that's probably that player communicating that they feel very confident they are going to take the win. Drive will have, I think, a slight EMP advantage, but probably only by 10 or 20 seconds. So as these EMPs count down and get closer and closer to 0, we'll see if either player is able to utilize them to a distinct advantage, or if it's sort of one pops off and then the other one pops off almost immediately in response, and the net result is almost 0. All right, Couple of rocket squads coming out of the Hand of Nod, and we got the Ops Center up and running for BikeRushOwnz. It's straight into the War Factory for Drive, so he's going a little bit aggressive. And it's good of Bike Rush that he got out that Hand of Nod. He got out those additional rocket squads, and he's just got a little bit of extra firepower to push Drive back. Drive is going to poke in here. He sees laser turrets at both entrances to that natural expansion, and he also sees some bikes coming across the map to potentially put some pressure on him. EMP firing off. It grabs at least one bike here. Maybe only one. Yes, literally just the one bike there getting EMP'd by Drive. And we'll have to see if BikeRushOwnz is able to catch a few more units with his EMP. Pretty tight group of bikes. If the prediction is good, BikeRushOwnz may be able to grab all of them. Maybe just as they land here with the EMP firing off, and he gets his own harvesters. He completely misses Drive's bikes. He was going for a bit of a prediction there. He missed, but it's okay because he chases away Drive's bikes, and he gets the kill on every single one of them. 2 bikes of bike do survive, and Drive is going to be going for the kill of the EMP control center of BikeRushOwnz. Will Drive actually let this happen? He's got some Scorpion tanks responding to this, and it looks like he won't let it die. So Drive won't be able to kill off that EMP control center right now. BikeRushOwnz will keep that around. These refineries are looking suspiciously close together, and of course Drive established his natural expansion a little bit later than BikeRushOwnz in terms of economy. So if he loses those 2 refineries... Oh, he's doing it again. This might be a bit unfortunate for Drive, just as he establishes his natural expansion if he loses these 2 refineries again. Mine drop directly on top of the harvesters. Bikes should be able to clean this up without too much trouble. And even a SAM site going to be going down just to clear the air. Holograms showing up just to give a little bit more vision to BikeRushOwnz, as I don't think he was quite ready for that. And more holograms showing up for, I guess, Drive as he gets that going. There's the Tip Catalyst missile or plant firing off. Tip Chemical Plant and the Catalyst missile locks down both of those refineries. And that's it. Wow, okay, the GG coming out from Drive in game number 4, really petering out at the end there. Once again, the critical mistake being placing his refineries a bit too close together. And BikeRushOwnz really grabbing control of this series and pretty much never letting it go. It's very sad to see Drive drop out this way after so many phenomenal games. Definitely having a bit of an off day here in the semifinals and producing sort of subpar results from what we've come to expect from Drive. Such a fun and a resourceful player to watch in almost every other case, but this tournament series just was not his day. He will drop into the 3rd place, the bronze match, if you will, and we will be seeing who from the other side of the bracket will be joining him there, and then who will go on to face BikeRushOwnz in the finals. That will do it for this video, for this series. Thank you all very much for watching, and this is Sybert, signing out.